Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2025 edition of a Skips tutorial for Tournament, presented by yours truly, Domare. We're going to be going through my top three pod picks for every single one of the tournament viable skips, or what I would call a tournament viable skip at the very least, as well as talking about some tips and tricks for how to perform all of them. So, if you're competing in this year's tournament or you just are interested in learning a bit more about skips, then this is the video for you, and I hope you enjoy. So, we're going to be kicking things off with the Bunta training course. It's a very lenient skip, in all honesty. There's a lot that you can do. My top pick here is going to be Juan Sandage in terms of overall consistency speed combination. So we're gonna go ahead and go up here. What you're gonna do is you're gonna brake and off throttle slide onto this little triangle here. Now, if you do it right, then you'll climb up and you can launch off, fly this way, boost through the air, land, and you'll count a lap. Now, what's really going on here? We just take ourselves the liberty of going into practice mode and turning on collision. So we're going to see what the wall looks like as we go up to it, right? So we can see that slanted wall. We want to be approaching the slanted wall at an angle like that. And where we jump off matters only a little bit, right? If you want to jump off high enough that you're going to make it over, but you don't have to like be super mental about it either. Because you have the speed, you have the height, you're gonna be fine. Now, other than that, what other notes do I have for you? First of all, I would personally recommend anywhere between 40 and 60 FPS, just for consistency of climbing, plus using the R20 traction upgrade. You're gonna want to avoid this wall here, and you're gonna want to make sure that you're pathing on the actual skip part. Yeah, let me show you. You're going to make sure that your pathing through the air does not go too far to the left. So if I were to, let me do this. So if I were to climb this huge wall here, right, and just jump way over left, and then go over here, my lap will not count because I have gone too far backwards. So what's the easiest way to avoid this? Well, in this situation, using Juan Sandage, what you're really looking for is you're looking for just that straight path right there, right? You'll always get your lap to count if you take that path. So remember, you're gonna off throttle slide to get onto this while braking. You're gonna climb until you get decently far up, and then you'll jump off at that like straight shot. All right. Now the other pods that I'd recommend are you're looking at a Mars Glow. I would personally recommend 5020, and Bumpy, Arc Bumpy Roost at 6100. I'm not always going to show you more than one pod on each skip, but I do want to emphasize that you do need to make sure that you practice each one of them individually, as they do each have different quirks. For example, one quirk about Mars is that he really doesn't like climbing this wall. So in some senses of the word, you'd probably do better off with Bumpy, but if Bumpy gets banned, you might want to pick Mars. So, but also, I do not want to confuse anybody. I'm not trying to tell you the order of the secondary picks, but I will tell you that the first is going to be your primary pick under most conditions. So you're gonna have to figure out what you like between Bumpy and Mars individually. But yeah. All right. So we're going to move on to Beto's Wild Ride. We'll be hopping back over to our default friend, Ben Quadinaros, and I would recommend 45 FPS R20 here. For those of you who are less used to these sorts of tracks, you might be wondering to yourself, where in the heck even is the Beto's Wild Ride skip? Or would this track even have a skip? Well, this track actually has a lot going on. Obviously. But the only one that is going to be relevant for this conversation is going to be the original OG skip here, which is past this area and on the wall that's up to our right. Okay, so here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna boost, go before the dark patch, and release turning while you're on the wall, and that will allow you to fly through the stuff. All right, that makes sense. I know that quick run through of it's probably not sufficient. I'll do a little bit of a better job paying attention starting some save states here. So let me go back for just a moment. Let's try that again. All right. So you approach, you right tilt, specifically. Hit this dark area right before the dark patch with not too much turning. And you release turning while you're on the wall, and that will allow you to jump over. Okay? Right tilt, boost, wall, release. Hold nose up the whole time. You're gonna turn left while you're in the air, and you'll make it over just fine. Ben has a very easy time on the skip. Just gotta pay enough attention. Bulls and Aldar are all going to be the exact same thing. They do not change tilt direction, and they also do not change the strategy. Turn into the wall, and with right tilt and release turning while you're on the wall while holding those up, and you'll fly just fine. I would like to note that Bulls and Aldar, I would personally recommend you do 60-20 on those. Moving on to Sunken City. This is not a track I would typically recommend people to do any skips on, but we might as well talk about it while we're here. You definitely will not be going for shortest skip, or whatever you want to call it, which is the biggest form of the non-AI skip that goes through the city. But if you really want to, you can always go for shortest cut. That would be an okay option. It's not what I'd personally recommend people to do, but again, it's like not the end of the world. Alright, so you're gonna come up here, gonna tilt, jump, off throttle, nose up, and then navigate through the collision. Okay. Released, boost, jump off this, and you have to get an angle that's less than 90 degrees. You don't want to be like perpendicular to this, right? Because you're going to lose a lot of speed, and more often than not, you're going to die. So you want to have not quite that much of an angle, right? Like that. See? There you go. I personally play this at 48-20 for consistency's sake with Ben. It tends to work out pretty well. You can try something like this if you want, but just remember, you want to tilt, jump, no throttle until you hit the thing, and try to avoid the collision that's in the air. There is quite a lot. It's very easy to memorize once you've looked at it enough times. You kind of want to just fly through that. One big thing that can happen is if your angle gets messed up while you're in the air. For example, if I flew wide, you can hit your cockpit on that and die. So if you notice you're going a little wide, you might want to try braking just to avoid dying. And you are going to die on the skip sometimes anyways, even with a perfect setup. It's just not 100%, but it's not that bad. So give it a try, see if you like it. Again, this is not any major differences between any other pods. I would just say 60-20 for both Bulls and Aldar if you want to try them. All right, moving on to Howler Gorge. Howler Gorge, the only skip that I would recommend anybody even think about or consider is from the bridge. So this will launch yourself through the hole in the ceiling by the bridge. I would recommend 24-100 for just Howler Gorge's sake. I think it'll give you a nice, easy jump, and the track should also feel pretty lenient at that point. Alright, so you're going to make sure you have enough boost. You're going to hold slide, and you see that hole right there? You see that triangle? You're aiming to push your pod through there. Now, it can be a little bit annoying. You have to really try to get over, and in all honesty, sometimes I am not the greatest at this, and I also have never tried to do this with the collision on before. There, you just kind of have to full send it like it's a corner. Like you have to try to be going around here right? I would really not recommend this skip to anybody, but if you want to go for it, you're gonna hold slide, you're gonna hold nose up, and you're gonna just try to corner around the left lip and go through that hole in the collision and make it, hopefully you have enough height to make it over. Which is the other problem, is that this skip can be inconsistent even if you make it through the ceiling. Sometimes you just won't get the distance that you need to actually make the skip happen. Most of the time it's pretty good on 24-100, but that's why I not necessarily recommend doing this. This one I would say Bulls 24-600 and Aldar 24-300, just due to different boost thrusts on those two, and that should work perfectly fine. Again, the setup does not change on this track. Now, one track that things will change quite a bit on, and one that we definitely want to be looking at this collision for, is Doug Derby. Our primary pick here, and easily the easiest to use, is going to be Juan Sandage. I would personally recommend 40 with R20 and using one map size greater. So we're going to go to the very first climbable face. Now, how can you tell what's the first climbable face? All right, so looking at this, oh, sorry, I can't look at this guy. That's so ugly. Sorry. Let's try that again. There we go, that's better. Okay, so the first climbable face is going to be the first one that you don't smack your face on, right? So like you see, I've smacked my face on that one. If I go one over, this one right here works just fine. This is also the first one that looks evidently blue when you drive past it, because the rest of it kind of just looks black, right? It's like, oh, look at that, there we go. All right. So now what you're gonna do is that. Okay. Now let's turn this collision back on. We want to get onto the first face, which, remember, it can't be this one, right? Because you smack your face into it, so you can't climb that one. It's this next one, and you can see the angle change here. It's very evident when you have the collision on. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna climb up here, and you're gonna launch yourself, right? Now, here's the thing about launching yourself. I find this actually very difficult to do with the collision on because I'm not used to seeing what's happening. But when you're climbing, you want to make sure that you actually get over to the left, so that way you can launch yourself at a reasonable angle, like that. And what you're doing through the air, okay, is I want to angle myself so that way in the air I cross over this point around where this fork in the road is, and then I just steadily angle back this way towards the finish line. We want to go past the finish line in the air, and while we're there we want to brake and turn around. So again, we're gonna get left, launch up, go past that point, turn around in the air, and just like that we're going. Right? It's pretty easy. Now if you find yourself past that first face, you can recover. I just find it a lot less consistent on the climb, and that's one thing that everybody seems to struggle with here is the climb. You have to fight it a little bit, but I'd really encourage you to just aim for this first face if you can. First one that looks blue, get over to the left, and it should just be fine. Nice straight line path through the air, easy. If we take the second one, we're still gonna be fine. Sometimes the camera might fight us a little bit. We're gonna have to adjust our angle a little bit, but we're still fine. See, camera fights us a little bit, but nice, easy 36. Okay. Okay. Now, why do I say things change here? Well, that would be because I would not recommend the same setup or the same face to climb for all of them. Okay? So the next one that we're going to talk about here is Bumpy. And this one, with Bumpy, we're specifically going to aim for the second face. Also, I would not recommend boosting because then you're going to go way too far. So why the second face? Well, that would be because his aerial control is so bad. His turning is so bad that when you get on the first face, it's like almost impossible to force him the direction that you want to go. And it's just easier to like already be kind of straight up in there. Big thing about Bumpy is you just want to remember that you have to apply the brakes a lot earlier with Bumpy than you do with one. And you're fine if you get on a different one most of the time. But it really is just best to find this second face, climb this, react a little bit, and take the same exact path that you would ever do, right? All right. And then the last one I'd recommend on Doug Derby is Mars. But I would say Mars, you're gonna stick to the first face like you did with Juan. And you're gonna switch to 60-20. Right, so not the second face, right? Not the one that Bumpy would go on. We want to go on this first face. It's just easier for Mars to climb since he struggles a lot with climbing. See how slow he is? If you get on that second face, you have to climb slowly the whole time. It's just a lot easier on him to do it this way. Now, if you want to be even faster with Mars, if you take this first face and you just let yourself launch over to the right more. Okay, I did not show that off. Let me see if I can get it this time. If you just let yourself climb, oh my goodness, this first face to the right. Oh, I didn't get it again. But you see how you can kind of do that? Like you can make it work, right? Like you can get it, and he'll climb that faster. But for consistency, I would definitely recommend just still turning to. Okay, now let's talk about a few things that can actually happen on this skip, because this is one of those skips that things are going to go wrong when you first try it, and you're going to wonder what exactly is happening. So, when climbing, it's going to push you left and right, and sometimes it'll push you off. You just have to learn to react and to get left earlier. When you're flying over, what's some things that can happen? Most common thing that you're gonna get is one of two things. Either one, you're gonna climb up and you're gonna just like go over way too early and nothing's gonna happen, right? If you go over too early and you just float around in the middle of nowhere, there's actually out of bounds between these things and you just die. Another thing that happens if you go over too early is that you can actually miss things that you need to be over. If you go too far, then the track will unload. So if you see this, that means that you waited too long to turn. Okay? Wait, the reason that happens is because there's a load trigger right about in this area here that unloads that first section. Now you can't tell when you turn around and go backwards, but when you're flying over it, if you fly over that, then you will immediately see that the whole left side will turn black. So just again, if you just keep flying straight, the whole thing will turn off. So you need to turn early enough and brake to make your life easier. So just one last time for the people in the back writing the notes. I want to see it. First face with one, climb up, go to the left, brake and turn and go. And there you go. All right. Next one we're going to talk about is Scrappers. This one is, again, going to be a bend track. Now, if I can actually, go to it, that would be helpful. We're going to do 60-20. You will see in IL records that you would generally go for like 60-60, but that's just for optimizations, not consistency. So the first skip, what you're going to do is you're going to turn with nose down and not die. Now, the reason that there is some inconsistency with this skip, and the reason why I generally don't like people picking it if they're like really trying to get something out of it, especially if you're like the the leader between the two, or the favored, is because you can just have a couple things going. For one, you can lose your nose down, which obviously means that you can't boost, and that's a bit of a disaster, which is what happened to me the first time. Another thing is that you can clip this and die. So what do you need to do to get this thing consistent? Well, first of all, you want to make sure that your approach is consistent. If you're way over here, it'll work, right? But it might be a little bit less consistent than if I were to take this inside line and get that better angle there, right? If I come from over here, sometimes you may not get enough height as well. But yeah, the main thing is just you want to have a nice, easy angle, and you want to stick to full nose down just to not overturn into it either. That's kind of the reason why you would die for the edges of I turn super early. I either will lose my nose down like that from losing too much speed, or I'll clip the edge and I'll die from losing too much speed. Yeah, so just a nice moderate angle, full nose down will work. It'll get you over. All right, now the second skip is this one right here. You're gonna hold slide and nose up while turning into it, and you're good. When you release slide, really doesn't matter. You can just hold it the whole time. You're fine. This one mainly helps for boost patterns, ignoring those two turns, and that's about it. It really saves like close to nothing. But it is also really, really easy with Ben on 60-20. Like, you're gonna make it 99+% of the time. Things that can go wrong is, for example, if I were to try to turn into this without slide, I will die. If I were to do this without nose up, then I will not make it. If I try to turn too early into it, then I will die from hitting that. If I try to do slide too late, I won't get enough height. So just hold slide, hold nose down, and turn. Sorry, nose up and turn. You will make it every time. This is very easy. Okay. Now, your next two picks are going to be Bulls and Aldar again. Bulls 60-80 and Aldar 60-80, but I would stick to just the first skip. The same notes apply to them. Do not do the second skip at all. It really is just kind of like a Ben exclusive skip. I mean, you technically can do it with other pods, but it's super inconsistent. So just do the first skip. Same notes apply as they did with Ben. All right, next up is Zugga Challenge. We're going to bust out. Get this. It's 60-20 Ben again. Wow. That's incredible. All right, so there are 3 skips that we're going to talk about here. Once we get there, which will take a little bit. This is one of the skips that's going to be a little bit more in-depth in terms of the discussion. Oh my. Okay, you know what? That's fine. we're just gonna tank that. We're gonna accept the speed loss. A little unfortunate. Alright, so the first skip, you're just gonna go right through there, right? You're gonna tilt and go right through the middle of it. Let's see, does the collision bureau actually show us the hole? Kind of. So really, it's a small hole, but when you tilt, you kind of get over it, right? So you're aiming in between the two, like in that triangle, right? You're aiming in between the two tubes, right? Okay. And you can just wait, and you can boost through, and you should be fine, as long as you don't do anything too crazy. Even if you were to not boost at all, you should get through, right? So like if you just hold nose up, you usually will get through. It's definitely not perfect consistency. It's better to boost, at least get a little bit of speed going your way. But yeah, all right, so there's the first skip. Now, as for the second one, it is on this wall right here. So what you're gonna do is, with Ben at the very least, you're gonna boost through here, cut your boost. With 71 nose down, run against that wall right there. Which wall? Well, that was too quick. Let me show you. It's right here. Right at that edge. Right. Boom. Bam. Now, if you don't want to do it with boosting, you don't have to. I think it is pretty consistent with boosting, but you can just hold nose up, and you can just hold left and nose up, and you'll launch over. Personally, I don't think it really adds anything to do that. Maybe a like small amount of consistency, but honestly, that happens to me more often. I find it just better to hold your nose down and just turn a little bit into the wall, and you should get through just fine. Now, you'll notice that sometimes I've been dying when clipping back in. A couple things. Number one, make sure you're always holding tilt when you clip through for this first skip going to the second one. And number two is try not to give yourself too much of an angle like that. You're more likely to die at an angle, is my experience with it. So minimize your angle to the best you can. And hold 71 nose down into that wall while tilting to the left. Now the third skip, we're not going to discuss right side because it is not tournament viable. We are instead going to discuss the classic way of doing this, assuming the dozer is right, which is left side. So what you're going to do, you're going to hold nose up and turn left, then you're going to hold nose down, turn left, and then you're going to launch this way and break in the air. Smack into this wall while not turning, and then you'll be able to go across and go. So remember, that is nose up and turn left while tilting, release, hold nose down, and there you go. Make sure that you break into this or you will die. Now, what happens if your dozer gets in the way? Oh no, dozer! Don't try to do that. For the love of everything, just don't try to force anything stupid, okay? If you really want to be frisky because you're super desperate, you can go for something like that, but I am not going to walk you guys through how to do that, and that is best done on lap 3 if you really want this. But usually, if you're on a good pace and you haven't messed up too much, the dozer will be able to do this. So it's not... Oh, excuse me. All right. Next, we're going to talk about on this track is our good friend Bowles. Now, Bowles has not been classically used here, just because people have viewed him as inconsistent at the skip or whatever they have. But Bowles is actually A, very fast, and B, shockingly good at the skip. So the first and the third skip really just work with everybody. Like, there's no messing those up if you do it right at all. So if you ignore the second skip, those first and third, you can choose to try. The notes will not change. Everything will always be the same. But this second skip with Bowles, what you're going to do is you want to make sure that you right tilt on the second skip, okay? Instead of left tilt, you want to right tilt. And just like that, easy. I would also recommend not trying to go for the boost with Bowles. He's a little bit less consistent at that, but if you just right tilt into this wall while holding nose up, you will get over it most of the time. Dying there is pretty rare with Bowles. It's just a matter of oversteering, essentially. But you can get this really, really nice with Bowles with that right tilt. And this is a 60-80. Very easy. And then the other one that we're going to talk about for Zaga is the classic pick of Mars. But I would recommend changing from 60-20, instead doing this at 45. You're going to use the same notes that you would with Ben. But on 45-20, now you decrease the percent chance of climbing the wall too quickly and dying, which is what usually happened on 6020. There was sliding that was involved to reduce that, but I personally find less inputs and more just setup changes to be more consistent because there's less human error involved, right? So like changing to 4520 and now I don't need to press slide or try to time anything. I can just use the same notes that I would with Ben. It's gonna make my life a lot easier. Oh man, that sneeze messed up my nose. I apologize. All right. So remember, boost through here, left tilt, and with 4520, you're gonna make it through. It doesn't look pretty, but it is consistent. Again, this is a no boost setup. But, I mean, if you're at the point where you're using Mars instead of Ben here, I feel bad. Now, it's not perfect. You want to make sure that you keep this in mind. None of these are perfect setups. If anything, I would say Bulls is probably the most consistent overall. But, yeah, I mean... Mars does work at 4520. Maybe you want to bump it up a little bit. But personally, I would rather not die to that stupid corner. I'd rather not get the height in the first place and miss the second skip than die and miss the second skip at the same time. And this still worked pretty consistently. So those are my recommendations for Zaka Challenge. Moving on to what I view to be basically the most consistent skip in the game is Bumpy's Breakers. So our primary choice here is going to be Ben Quaternaros at 6020. What you're gonna do, you're gonna take a nice straight line here. You're gonna hold nose up and you're gonna turn left right near about 2/3 of the way through the wall by that dark patch. I forgot to save state again, so let's set that up here. So here, this dark patch right there, okay? You're gonna turn right about then, and you will get through like 99+% of the time. This skip is absurdly consistent. See, I turned too early there. You just gotta make sure you time it. That's all it comes down to. It's really super easy. There's close to no justification for not knowing this skip. And doing it with Ben is the easiest choice by far. Just don't turn too early. If you turn too early, you're gonna die. You just have to wait. Alright. There is the second part to this, which is you can also do shortest cut here, but that would generally be better at a lower FPS setup, just like I was on Sunken City, and that makes this skip less consistent. And given that you lose 45 seconds by missing this skip, I would highly recommend if you're extremely used to this skip, if you're just brand new to this, to stick to 6020 and completely ignore the shortest cut skip. But you can see, if I don't turn too early, I make this every single time. No issues whatsoever. Okay. The next version is going to be Bulls on 6060. Now, personally, I have always felt like Bulls feels very scary here. And I really do think that he is scary, but he's... Goodness gracious me. If you make sure that you have a good angle, you can't take this like soft approach. If you make sure you have a good angle going into it, he does have very high consistency as well. I know that I made it look bad, but I just kind of didn't take the correct approach. Make sure you take this little bit of a direct approach to the wall. Like, you want to not take this flat line. Like this can work, but if you go like that greater angle, a lot better probability of this. I mean, I haven't missed it once taking this angle yet, so yeah, that's all you really want to do with Bulls. A little bit of a different setup than Ben, but it works very well. And then the last of your choices here, personally, there's Elon, there's Mars. I highly recommend going with solid Mahonic. Mahonic just feels right to me here. I don't know how else to describe it. He just does the skip, and he just feels the same as Ben. And there's no better feeling than making a skip feel the same as the way you're already used to doing it. And Mahonic makes this all very easy. In fact, in my experience, 60-20 Mah can even reasonably, but not perfectly, reasonably go for this, as you can see. I think he's relatively consistent with that. It's the same notes as it would be with Ben on Sunken City. But you would just apply it to 60-20 on. But yeah, I think Mahonic is the next most consistent after Ben at this skip, and he's even more consistent at doing shortest cut than Ben. So he's a very good pick, but Bulls is faster and almost as consistent. So yeah. All right. Executioner, everybody's favorite, and possibly the longest explanation in this entire video. So I'm going to start with my personal favorite. This one is all three are viable, and you just have to choose what's most consistent for you. Also, I'd recommend switching to the default map. I'm going to go down to here, right in this, anywhere in this territory, right where that ramp ends. Okay? It's like right at the edge of this collision. Just want to make sure you're on this flat ground at all. Assuming you are, you will be able to turn around and come up here. And you're going to go right into this little nook. You're going to hold slide and turn left like that. And then take a straight line over to this forking path here. Now, it should be noted that this skip has a little bit of inconsistencies with the launches specifically. When you get into this position, it feels good to hold slide and turn left and get a good launch, but sometimes you get a worse launch, and you have to be able to figure out how to react to the different ones. And unfortunately, I do not have the time or wherewithal to go over all of them with you. It's just a matter of, if it looks like you're not going to go anywhere, you're going to want to brake and redo it. If it looks like you've hit some collision, you have to assess your speed and see if it's worth bailing out of or going for. And if it looks like it's going to turn you to the right without you being in control, first of all, you probably didn't hold slide early enough or turning early enough. And second of all, you're going to want to bail. But that is kind of like the most common things. So remember, you're going to start by reversing. Going down to the flat ground down here and turning around, like so. Climb this wall here. Get into this little nook. And when it forces you into off throttle engines, hold slide, turn left, and launch yourself. Take a straight line over to these forked paths to increase the probability of you not dying. And there you have it. So again, my personal most consistent pick is with Mars, but it does not have to be yours. There are two others that I would consider very consistent here as well, and perfectly reasonable picks for a tournament strategy here. As you can see, I personally find Mars very, very consistent, so that's why I use him. Alright, the next one on our list of potential options for Executioner is going to be 24-600 Ben Guadinaros. It is the exact same method of doing everything. The question always just comes down to comfort on the actual, like, jump part from the skip. and, flying through the air and all of that. It's just comfort. You're gonna get into the exact same position, you're gonna get the exact same slide on the off throttle and turn left. Like so. And like so. There's really no difference, so it's just a matter of comfort. So, and then our last pick here is going to be 24-100 Bullseye. So you have Mars, Ben, and Bullseye as potential picks on this track. Same exact notes: bottom, turn around, go up here, go into the nook, hit the off throttle, slide, turn left, and there you have it. Works just like a charm. If you're wondering why you go under the track, is because if you go back over the track, it will push you back on the track and also unload the track. So that's why you have to jump under. Anywho. Moving on to Subulba's Legacy. This is going to be very basic information. First of all, I'd recommend 50-20 or Ben. You're gonna have oh, I can't look at that. You're gonna have a very typical order of Ben, Bulls, Aldar. Ben 50-20, Bulls 60-80, Aldar 60-80 are my recommendations. I know there are people who are going to want to play Mars or Bullseye here, but you have no reason to. You just gotta learn. Alright, but we're focused on the skip here. We're not focused on the full track. So if you want to learn more about the full track, you're gonna have to study that on your own. This skip is right here at this part. What you're gonna do is you're gonna hold left tilt and go like that. It's very easy, right? So you slide, tilt, and jump up. If you want to be really fancy, some people just don't tilt. Mystery to me. I think it's way better to tilt and turn. I think it's very consistent. Again, in contention for the easiest skip in the game, along with Bumpy's, is this one. There's really just nothing to it. And it's the exact same notes for Bulls and Aldar, which is why I don't really feel the need to think too much about this. You should be able to learn this one. You just corner with slide, tilt, hold nose up, and okay, that's it. Next one is Andobi Mountain Run. We're going to start with Ben Quadinaros once again, but we're going to hop him down to 24-300. We're going to choose to ignore the one that we already talked about on Howler Gorge, because the notes would be identical. And we're instead going to just drive ourselves down to the AMR skip itself. This is another one of those ones that is not super consistent. It's okay. It's still worth doing or learning at the very least, but it's not your best friend as a skip, and it doesn't save the most amount of time either. Whoa. Having a bit of fun in these hairpins today, apparently. Whee. I knew that would happen. Try to be fancy, nobody gets it. Just death. Alright, let's get on down. So the skip, you're gonna go to the right, turn, go up this hill, not hold slide, and you're gonna hold right. Now the key is you want to wait as long as possible to turn right without going into the wall. So you can see that's all it is. And then you go straight into canyon. So turn and turn to the right. See, if you wait too long, then you'll lose your boost. But if you go, for example, much earlier, like this, then you're not going to get enough distance. So it's about finding that line between the two. It's not the most inconsistent thing ever once you're used to it, but it's also not the most consistent either. And it also does make the a lot more difficult. My personal estimate is that you'd be better off just learning how to do a fast canyon properly and without doing your like that. But I also understand wanting to do something fun like this skip, and you can certainly practice this timing and get it down better than I have it. I am not particularly great at this skip, although I do have like fast times on it. It's just a little inconsistent for me. But yeah, that's really all it is. Same notes apply to Mars and Ben. Mars 2460. Sorry, Mars and Bulls. Mars 2460, Bulls 24600. Next, we're going to talk about is Stethos or Deathros, depending on how you want to pronounce things, or if you're a nerd or not. Revenge. I would recommend Ben on 4020 or Ben on like a 3060. So if we take Ben at 3060 here, for example, I think at 3060 is a bit better. Goodness. You gotta make sure you stay on the top path. Yeah, just cut your boost for this corner. You're gonna right tilt, turn about halfway through, hold nose down, and then you'll bounce off the two. It's a little bit easier if you hold nose up here first, and then do this. And there you go. Move it across. So right tilt, nose up, release, nose down, boost once you get on that. And you want to aim a little bit past the track and try to get into the slot in between the track and the wall, just because sometimes you'll die on the actual track, so it's a little bit easier if you just aim for the slot and die. Now, of course, you could be lazy about it and you could just skip a corner or something, but I think that's kind of lame. It's a lot more interesting to do this. Now, I will warn you, this one takes a little bit of practice on the timing and is definitely not the most consistent. It kind of has the exact same condition as the AMR skip we were just doing, where I think that this is technically worth doing, but it's not really worth it in a tournament, and you're better off just bettering your opponent at the full track, in my opinion. But you certainly can learn the skip, and if you get it 2 out of 3 laps and miss it the other lap, then you're basically going to learn the full track anyways. So if you think you can get it 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 3 times, then it could perhaps be worth going for. Ooh, that was almost good. A little bit of a side note. Bulls and Aldar at 3100 are my next recommendations. And with both of them, rather than doing right tilt, you're actually going to want to left tilt into this wall. It's odd how these pods have that slight difference sometimes, but yeah, left tilt works better with both Aldar and Bulls. And again, this is 3100 at least. Just 2 upgrades better will even out the traction difference between Ben and Bulls/Aldar. And they should feel basically identical other than the turn rate and turn response. And of course, like I said, you do have to tilt to the left for some obscure reason that I don't understand. And there you have it. Next one is Bunta Classic. Bunta Classic is going to be a recommendation of Ben, Bulls, and Mars. They each have slightly different things that you're going to do on the wall, so we will go ahead and talk about all 3 of them. I would personally recommend 50-60, although 60-20 is fine with Ben as well. This is just my personal comfort zone. It's what I do the full track on. And so I don't want to mess with the feeling of the track just for the skip, even though the skip is gonna work either way. All right. So what you're gonna want to do, you're gonna go to the left here, no tilt, tilt, no tilt, tilt on those bumps. Hit this first space and just hold left and nose up. And you're gonna aim straight to this exit and hold slide when you land. What holding slide when you land will do is it'll prevent you from bouncing up in the air and dying. So like sometimes if you got just the right like landing, you could bounce back up into one of these things, right? And that's not what you want. So you're gonna tilt, hold nose up and left the whole time, aim straight for this exit, and land with slide. And that's it. That's the whole thing. It is a very easy skip. Again, super consistent. Now with bowls, we're going to instead take the route of 60-60. And you're gonna do the same face, same tilting, but instead of doing nothing other than holding those up, you're gonna hold slide. So, yes. Woo. That was a save. So same setup here, except you want to be more left with bowls just because it was lower traction. It's going to be a little bit more consistent. So you get on this first face, hold slide and nose up and left, and you'll get like the same launch that you do. Again, hold slide when you land. So you're going to go left for consistency there. Slide, nose up, left, launch, and land a slide. That's all it is. Now, what I would recommend doing for consistency's sake is waiting just a hair before pressing slide. Otherwise, you might not get as much height out of it. Because you want to ride the wall a little bit longer. And you should see that you get a little bit more height consistently. And it should help you with your overall consistency with the skip. And then lastly, we're going to do 60-20 with Mars. Think about Mars is that he's odd, as he loves to be. Instead of taking the first face and tilting left, we're going to take the second face, tilt left, or we are all, sorry, tilt right. And we're going to once again place. So quite the laundry list of differences between Peg and Mars here. So same setup to the left for consistency. Right tilt, second face of the wall, hold slide and nose up. And you should get enough height most of the time. And even then, this is not my favorite. I would again recommend holding slide a bit later because you really want to emphasize getting light on the wall. And if you do it right, then you'll get a nice big jump that works. If you do it wrong, and you get on the wrong part of the base or hold slide too early and you get a nice low jump rather than one of these like big ones, then it's just not as consistent. So you really want to emphasize delaying pressing slide, but you do still want to do it. See, if I launch off too early or I let go tilt or slide or whatever, it just doesn't work. So wall, hold slide, left, nose up. That nice delay will give you a big jump. And don't land there. But that is my notes for Bunta Classic. That leaves us with 4 more tracks. We're going to start with Endoprime Centrum, with Ben on 45-20. For consistency's sake, easiest route is to take left or right and then invert this path. So like right to left or left to right. The easiest route that's also fast is to just do right to left. So, all right. And then you have two routes. You can either go to the left like that, or you can go to the right like that. Personally, I find the left side to be a little bit more consistent, just a hair. Alright, notes about this. If you go to the left side, you want to right tilt when turning into it, and you always want to make sure you land while tilting, going back when you click back in. And on the right side, you're going to want to left tilt, and again, land while tilting. Now there is a fun little extra thing that you can do, mostly from the left side. If you choose to do this, is you can go and you can land just beyond right here and actually save a little bit more time. You still have to cut over the ending of the tube, otherwise it will not load. But if you want to do something like this, just for swag points, you certainly can. I would recommend for most people, they go to the left side and tilt and boost on that face there, and you'll get through most of the time. Nothing's perfect, but it is very consistent. And obviously a lot faster than the full track. With bowls, it's going to be the same thing. However, with our third option, which in this case is actually going to be Mars 6020, also Bowls is 6020 as well. Mars at 6020. I find that you should stick entirely to the left side. So we're going to do this opening just all the same. Not worried about this, right? But the thing that we're going to change is we're going to focus all of our efforts on this side. It is significantly more consistent with Mars to do the right side, sorry, the left side than it is to do the right side. The one thing I don't remember, left tilt with Mars. No. Stick to right tilt. But you want to be on the left side. Mars is very fast at doing that because the left side is a little bit faster than the right side. So after Bowls, it is just better and safer and consistent to just use Mars. All right, now the most infamous skip of them all is Abyss Skips. And we're gonna do Abyss Skips with our primary pod choice of Wand Sandage 6020. We're gonna do the very basic route, which is turn right, get on the wall. You're gonna go left a little bit, break, turn back around, and do the same thing. Now the thing about going left initially is you want to make sure you go left and over the collision before you turn around. And the reason you want to do that is otherwise your lap position will not update. So if I turn on my flag view, we'll see if I turn too early, my position will not update in any good way. I need it to update to early in the track and then back to the end. So we want to turn like that and then have it update again. And then we can go forward again. Like I said. Right. If I turn too early, I don't actually get past the finish line as well, is another issue. When doing this, most important thing to remember is that people mess this up all the time. So the thing you just want is you just want a nice, easy, consistent strategy for the skip. You don't want to like force anything too crazy. You don't need to force anything too crazy. I think you're fine if you get something like a 24 or 25. The next pod choice, for consistency's sake, in my opinion, is to go to Mars on 6020 as well. The thing about Mars is that he is a bit luggier, right? So it's going to take him longer to climb this wall. You got to give him a little bit of time. You want to be perfectly on that black line to make it as consistent as possible. And you want to really make sure that you emphasize properly getting over everything and making sure you really have the space to use it. But in terms of overall consistency and speed, I personally would recommend using Mars. Just because he's pretty easy to use. And then my third choice on Abyss is actually somebody that you would never think to use, like Holdfast. This will not be the only appearance of Plague on this list. Plague has the same hover height as Mars, and pretty decent acceleration. Sometimes you do have to kind of salvage it a little bit. I find him more consistent than Bumpy, but some people do prefer to use Bumpy. Plague just works like a worse Mars, and I find that to be generally more consistent. Again, there's nothing perfect about this, and honestly, this has been a pretty poor showing of what Plague can do. He's generally more consistent than what I've just put on the table. Oh, goodness. But yeah, I mean, you're welcome to play around with Bumpy or whatever if you would like to. I personally would rather not play around with Bumpy if I don't have to. That's just me. I do not know exactly why Clegg sometimes doesn't want to play nice, but, you know, such is the life. There we go. There's what's supposed to happen. He's usually pretty consistent. So, play with a little bit. Same-ish setups. Just 60-20. All right, and next up we got Gauntlet Skips, which our primary candidate here is going to be 4080 Ben. Now, people like to do a wall ride. However, I will not be teaching you to do the wall ride because I hate it, and I do not think it is consistent. I don't know how people make it consistent, so I will not be teaching it to you. Instead, we will just stick to what I personally prefer. So you go along here, you're gonna cut past this side, you're gonna use this to jump over, and you're gonna do this a little bit of a bounce all the way over the collision. Now, what am I doing on that bounce is one question you might be asking yourself. And we will get right into that. I'm just gonna make sure I get this lap, and then we'll save state there for the next one, so that way I can show it to you a little bit easier. Okay, that's beautiful. All right. Another thing that you can do is you can just kind of like cut over. But anyways. So what is actually happening here is I land with tilt, right? I turn off with nose down, with nose up, sorry. I turn off of it with nose up. Okay, let's focus on it a little bit better. Fine. This route is more consistent anyways. And then I release tilt in order to gain back some turning. And on the last bounce that you do, also, if you die there, you can kind of show this a little bit. Anyways, in the last bounce that you do, you're gonna hold nose down, so that way you can boost through the out of bounds. You're gonna land with slide once again. Now that showing probably made this look like I am absolutely atrocious at this game. But I can assure you it's really not that inconsistent. I'm just doing too many skips in sequence, and that in and of itself causes a little bit of inconsistency on my part. But I can assure you that this is not usually that bad as long as you cut boost. There we go, now we're getting a little bit of consistency back. Most important thing on this skip is always just to make sure you actually go over the collision so you don't die to the unbounce timer. But yeah. My second recommendation would be 4300 Bulls with the exact same concept. And my last recommendation would be 4020 Mars, again with the exact same concept. Now, if you really want to get frisky, then you can always pull out a 60-20 Ben and do Dwayne skips. However, this is almost certainly never going to be done successfully 3 times in a row in a tournament. So we're just going to talk about it just long enough to satisfy you folks at home who really wanted to understand a little bit more about it. So at the end of the tube here, you're going to turn, boost, break down a lot of your speed. And you're going to tilt, turn, and boost into the rock. Like so. That's what usually happens. Every time you think you have a setup for consistency here, the rock just chooses to say no. So you just do what you can. There is no perfect consistency, which is why this is, in my estimate, never going to be done 3 out of 3 times in a tournament setting. But yeah, tilt, break right before the rock. Sorry, boost right before the rock. And turn to the right when you're about to hit. And if you get lucky, then you will magically hold the boost, jump over the fence, land down here, and you're in the tube. And at 60-20, you're going to want to make sure that you hold slide to get through these just with enough space. And you're good to go. That's the Dwayne skip. Don't do that. But I just want to talk about it for fun. And finally, we have made it to the last thing on our journey here, which is Inferno. And our first pick is, of course, going to be 60-20 Mars Glow. So let's talk about this. I will not be teaching you the lap skip, because it is not consistent enough, in my personal opinion. And when I say the lap skip, I mean the this thing where you ride on the roof. But anyways, so this lap 1 skip, what you're gonna do is you're gonna turn right, hold nose up, and thrust. And when you get that little bit of height on that first part, that's when you're gonna release. Alright, so you want a little bit of height there. If you go too late, you certainly will be fine with Mars, but it will be slower. Next up, this part. So if we're coming out over here, we want to break, turn around, and you see this little like fold that's like right here between this like these vertical patches versus these kind of like splotches. At least that's how my eyes see it. That's the part that you're gonna want to be on, right? So that was fun. So you break, turn around, tilt, and go into it. Okay. So much harder to do at this speed, oh my goodness. It's so awkward trying to force this. But anyways, you're gonna tilt and you're gonna hold nose up and off throttle on the ceiling so that way you can go to the next lap. And if you really get lucky, you can do the lap skip, but I don't understand that. So I'm just gonna do this once again. So again, lap 1. You turn to the right, and nose up and throttle, and turn over. You're gonna wait until you're at a low speed. You're gonna tilt and turn into there. On the ceiling, you wanna make sure that you hold off throttle initially, plus nose up. It never works. Nose up, off throttle when you're on the ceiling. You can reintroduce throttle when you're going over. You want to make sure that you're always landing on the other side. If you land down here without landing up on that path first, your lap will not count. If you turn too early, like if I were to turn like way back here, even if that lap counts, more than likely my next lap will not. Okay, I got a little lucky there, but the point is don't turn too early. Final review. Turn to the right. Nose up and throttle into the wall while tilting. Brake. Tilt into that. Off throttle, nose up, reintroduce throttle, let go of nose up. And repeat. And it's a nice, easy 24. A respectable time. Next up on our list is actually going to be Juan Sandage. Very similar pod in terms of what you're gonna do here. The main thing is that he's very touchy on this first part, and it's better just to wait until it works. And then on this second part, the thing to remember is it is a lot better to get on the wall first and launch over to guarantee that you get over. Now, most of the time, if you do this the same way that you would with... If you did this the same way that you did with Mars, most of the time you're going to be fine to make it over, but you see, he falls a bit quicker because he's a smaller pod. So, first lap, you want to still turn and get into this with nose up, and you can get over early like Mars, but if you don't, just react and get back on the wall. This part is a little bit easier if you get that little bit of air first. Beforehand, just makes it a little bit more consistent because the name of the game here is consistency. Oh, I turned too early. See, that's what happens if you turn too early. You don't fully make it over the line, is that you just won't have the lap count. And now that puts us in this difficult situation that we're in. But yeah, Juan, obviously a lot harder to use than Mars. There's really no way to teach the difficulty, unfortunately. It's just the instant that you try it, you will be immediately aware of why it's more difficult. And again, you can do the same thing that you do with Mars in terms of the turnaround here and with the tilting and all that stuff, but I personally find it significantly less consistent with Juan, which is why I tend to not go for that. Alright, and then the last choice here, in desperation, is actually Clegg Holdfast. This is the second appearance of Clegg here, so that's fun. Clegg is, you're gonna have to go farther down to get this to work on that lap 1, but the rest of it is just like with Juan. You get on this wall. I'm on the wrong part of the wall. Oh shoot! Okay, let's do that again. That was wild. If you get on the wall like you would with Juan, okay, right here. You just get on it without tilting and jump over. You're gonna get over. This is all very painful, right? Like this is all very painful to watch. But at the end of the day, at least he does do it. Nobody can take that away from him, that he does do this skill. Now, you're gonna really want to make sure you watch your brake timings. That's the only reason I'm dying there, is just because I'm not watching my brake timings correctly. But if we were to try to do this like really quickly, I would go about that far after a boost start. really make sure I nail my turnaround. Oh, come on. You gotta make sure your speed stays low, unfortunately. And that lap's not gonna count. Okay. Let's try this again. I do hate to say it, but unfortunately, this is not exactly something that I practice ever. This is just something that I know does work, and I would personally be more comfortable doing this than some other choices. There we go. Obviously, dying to those pillars is not ideal, but that is a matter of human error. It's not like the plane is at fault for that. And make sure you don't do that because then it's not gonna help. But anyways, that's kind of all my general notes. This has been quite a long explanation of everything. If you have any specific questions, feel free to always reach out to me or leave a comment. I am going to leave a link to a sheet that will have all of the different skips with the three different setups and the like the three different pod setups that you would want to use for them. I'm not going to go too crazy into detail with all of that stuff. Like I'm not going to leave a whole bunch of notes because that is what the point of the video is. And I will also be more than open to again responding to whatever you guys have as questions. I'm not the most qualified for all of these skips, but I do have more than enough knowledge to potentially help you out or review like footage or whatever with you. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. If you watched this far, hope this was helpful, and I will see you in the next one.